Welcome back, everybody, to the Podecito podcast. I am your host, Surreal469. Thank you for joining me here on this journey as we go episode by episode through our collective favorite show. Of course, I'm talking about the incomparable Las Vegas. We are now on episode 16 of the season and the series. Don't you know, it is New Orleans. One of my absolute favorite episodes, not just of the season, but of the series. I have many a times found the DVDs, even if it was like packing or in a box somewhere. I've dug out the DVDs and I have specifically played this episode because I love this episode. This is one of my personal favorites. Not everybody necessarily agrees with me. Talk with one of the listeners on Twitter. You can do the same at the Podecito. And the conversation was that he felt that New Orleans was one of the lesser episodes of the season. He's not alone. IMDb rated this episode 7.1 out of 10, and Las Vegas-theseries.com on the way back machine rated it 3.5 out of 5 chips. That is, which brings the average rating from those two aggregate sites, or not aggregate sites, but rating sites, to 7.05 out of 10. Ooh, that is not the highest that we've seen so far here since we've been keeping track of the ratings. You can go back and you can help me keep track of the ratings on all the other episodes if you please. But I don't know. I like this episode. It is an unabashed backdoor pilot. It is for sure a backdoor pilot. There's no telling me that they did not plan on expanding the Las Vegas universe with this episode. Let's get into the details of it. It debuted February 16th, 2004. It was directed by the directorial genius of Timothy Busfield, and it was written by the puppet master himself, Gary Scott Thompson. We come to a shot where we whoosh from the city side of the strip, not necessarily like the strip, but the city side of like Las Vegas, not exactly from the mountains, but definitely from the city side. And we come in to see a sign outside and inside that says World's Largest Wet T-Shirt Contest. They are holding a wet T-shirt contest here in the Montecito. However, the sign is misleading. This is not the world's largest wet T-shirt contest. When we get to it, there's going to be like 6 women up there. That's not the world's largest. Are you kidding me? That's what MTV used to do. What? MTV wouldn't go on the air without 20 chicks back in the 90s. But okay, say it's the world's largest wet T-shirt contest if you want to. Danny and Mike are ogling the women. Let's just face it, they are being guys. They are being unabashed. Like I mentioned, guys, they are drinking in all the beauty that is in front of them. There are definitely some lookers, one with not the greatest wig, a natural beauty there on the end with the bronze everything, like the outfit and the skin and everything. It was great. Mike is asking for somebody to cool him off, and Nessa takes him up on the offer quite literally.
God, I love my job more and more each day. Damn. Oh, she's hot. Oh, hotter than hot. Smoking. Fire. Somebody better cool me off. That was a rhetorical comment.
Oops, my bad.
While they're having a conversation, they are met from the girls of the Montecito, all the queens, and the queens are not having any of it. They don't like any of the talk that that Danny and Mike are engaging in while they're checking out the women and talking about how Danny goes into a thing about how the species is dependent on men being attracted to women like that who are well endowed, and then the women look at themselves, but there's nothing, sweeties. You guys don't trip about that. You are good. You are good. And then Mary steps over there.
Survival of the species depends on men's ability to be attracted to women who look like that. Yeah, you should probably stop. What?
She's a he.
What?
Your smoking hot lady is a guy.
Mary, that's not cool.
Mary could hook you guys up.
Yeah, a little threesome.
Yeah, but would it be a threesome with him, her? Isn't that more like a foursome?
Or 2.5 men, son.
That's not funny.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I'm just going to say this. I'm just going to put this out there. So they chose her for a reason. They chose this actress for a reason. Mary chose her to say that she's a guy for a reason because she doesn't have the softest features. She doesn't have the softest, features that a lot that the queens of the Montecito, for instance, have. Her features are a little bit more hard. You know what I mean? She's a woman, but she's a handsome woman, as they used to say. And Delinda stops Mary and says that she's not a guy, and Mary says, "I know that, but they don't." Oh, Mary, she is quite contrary here on this one. We cut to a bunch of people squabbling in the lobby, and Mary has to try to calm them down. You see, those are the Holdens, and Mary is she introduces herself to Roy, the head of the family. He's the one that's going to be in charge. They're all here for a family reunion, don't you know? Roy is played by Paul Ray. We're going to see a lot of Roy a little bit later on. You've seen a lot of Paul in your lifetime. His first credited role was in The Package, which was a short. He played Miller. He then immediately went to go do Sabrina the Teenage Witch as a worker. He did this episode of Las Vegas about a year later. You've seen him in a bunch of stuff. He's usually playing the hick. He's usually playing like sheriff or just a good old big country boy. Occasionally, he'll play. The one memorable thing that you might remember him from was he was on an episode of Criminal Minds, or 2 episodes of Criminal Minds, where he played Lucas Turner. And if I remember the episode correctly, he was again, country guy, but he was the one that held, I want to say it was Spence hostage for Paul's brother, who was smarter than him, but was disabled of some kind, I believe. Or it might have something to do with a child. I can't remember. He was very memorable. I do remember him in that role. It's been a while since I've seen that show. But he played one of the bad guys who didn't know he was bad because he was like Lenny from Of Mice and Men. The latest things you've seen him in were Brockmire for 8 episodes in 2017, and the absolute latest thing you've seen him in, because he does have a couple things in post-production, is Average Joe with Eric Close. He plays head coach Adams. That just came out last year. That's Paul Ray. Roy is telling her how he won Powerball. Does he say how much they won? Hold on. He doesn't say how much they won, but they did win Powerball, and that is a lot of money, even and especially back then.
Y'all here?
Except for the 350 aunts, uncles, and cousins we didn't know about till we won Powerball.
Well, a windfall of money brings them out of the woodwork every time.
Out of the woodwork? They act like we owe them something. We never even met them before. We got one third cousin twice removed who actually sent us a bill for a boob job, and another one who wants us to buy him a farm, 150 acres.
I would imagine that is something that possibly can happen when you come into a large amount of money. I haven't myself. However, the Patreon, the Subscribe Star, and such is open, so you can make that happen, whoever the big whale is. In any event, when that does happen for the Holdens, everybody wants to come out and they want to party, but Roy's the one in charge. Roy wanted Las Vegas. They took a family vote, and the family vote came to Las Vegas over Hawaii, but it turns out Roy has 2 votes and he controls the money, and immediately we know what the problem is here.
Hey, that's enough!
Are you sure you want adjoining rooms?
Oh, hell yeah. We gonna party tonight, ain't that right there?
I can't imagine that rowdy group getting together and partying. It actually kind of does remind me of my family, so if I did get that large windfall from a patron or a subscriber of the Subscribe Star, let me tell you something. I would upgrade the equipment. Obviously, we get an editor and stuff in here, and none of my cousins would know. None of them will know. We go up to surveillance, and we see Ed talking to Danny, and this is an interesting shot. You see the huge size difference between Ed and Danny, and it's maybe because Ed is hunched over. Yeah, he's leaned over the rail, and as soon as he stands up, it deflates a little bit, but it looks like a huge height difference the first time we see it. So Ed and Danny are talking about this Mahalio kid who has skipped out with an outstanding balance at the Montecito of $4.5 million, which, but in today's money, equals $7,515,714.66. That is a lot of money he skipped out on, which is weird because he actually lives in one of the Montecito suites somewhere on one of the Montecito properties. Apparently, there are a lot of Montecito properties. He loves the Montecito so much, but he skipped out on a bill, and they're trying to figure out exactly how and why he skipped out on a bill. They bring Sam in. Turns out that this Mahalio kid was playing a game, a backwood room game with the guy named Glenn, who has a bad rap sheet. Glenn cheated. Mahalio skipped out on that bill, and so now he's out of town. That's a lot of trouble that he's in. And Ed said that he will watch over this kid because he knew his father. He liked his father. He likes the kid, and he wants to make sure that the kid is doing okay. But unfortunately, he's not. He's wrapped up with a guy whose rap sheet includes armed robbery, extortion, assault, and manslaughter. Manslaughter was his first charge, and that's probably his first offense. That's the only reason he served, I guess, maybe 12 years, 10 years on that sentence. He's in a lot of trouble, and they're trying to figure out exactly where he is. Turns out he goes by a nickname.
Does he ever go by an alias?
No.
What about a pet name? What, Sam? It's no time to get cute, all right?
Some of the girls call him Big Mac.
Big Mac.
What, I don't know about it personally.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that, that's what I've heard.
Yeah. Listen, look under B. Mac. See if he's come through any of our properties.
The Montecito properties, of course, owned by Mr. Brunson, and Mr. Brunson has an audit that's coming up very, very soon, and he needs to keep track of and find and record and have some knowledge of that $4.5 million before that audit comes through, because audits go in absolutely everything, and they need to make sure that they can account for that money. So where's BMAC? Is he at the Reno location, the Laughlin, the New Orleans, the Atlantic City, the Bahamas, London, any of the cruise ships? How about the Monte Carlo? How about the few resorts in Hawaii? Oh, Montecito was everywhere. Oh, they're doing big business. And I wonder if they're in Hawaii. There is definitely some potential for crossover there. If GST wants to get... is Hawaii Five-0 still on? It might be. Is it? Is it? It probably is. Why wouldn't it be? It's been on forever. It's on CBS. CBS loves shows like that. Anyway, BMAC turns up in one location. He is in New Orleans. And he checked into New Orleans on February 15th of 2004 in room 19977. That's good for him, and that's good for us, because that means that we are, in fact, in the exact same week that we're supposed to be in, because the episode aired February 16th. BMAC checked in yesterday, according to the computer. And Ed said,
Get the jet ready. We're leaving in 10 minutes. We're going to New Orleans. The three of us.
And we are going to the credits, the unskippable credits. I love these credits. Why would you skip them? As we come back from the credits, we fly over the Silver Dome with a CG plane that didn't look that bad the first time I saw it, but, CG has advanced since then. We see beam footage of people in Mardi Gras. So in the casino, Danny thanks Ed for bringing him to Mardi Gras, which technically is correct. According to Google, Mardi Gras was February 24th, 2004, but the Mardi Gras celebrations can start upwards of 2 weeks beforehand. So within the wheelhouse, we're about a week in, we're within the wheelhouse of Mardi Gras. That all works. There is a rumble at this Montecito here in New Orleans, and not the rumble in the Montecito that those of us with the DVDs are used to. Nay, nay, I say nay, nay. This is a actual fight with people punching and kicking and brawling and picking people up. And there's people playing Zydeco over there in the lounge function. This is the first musical check, by the way, that we have on the... There's a lot of music in this episode, and it's mostly Zydeco. There is a lot of music in this episode. Most of it is really, really good. Even the worst of it isn't terrible, actually. It's even the worst AI song, and there is a worst AI song, isn't as bad as last episode's. The song that we hear as we come in here on all versions, including all the streamings and Roku, etc., is Zydeco Pas Saleh. That's Zydeco, Zydeco, Passalee by Lisa Haley and the Zydecats. Good song. It's on all versions of it, and people are punching and kicking, and there's somebody standing in between them, and you see them, and there's people dancing with Mardi Gras masks on. You see Raging Cajun all over the place. You see the inside of this casino, and oh my gosh, it's Little Richard. Little Richard is just walking through, and Sam is starstruck. Sam, of all people, is starstruck for the first time in her, maybe, I don't know if it's the first time in her life, but she's definitely starstruck. And Little Richard's got her, and Little Richard comes over and winks to her.
How you doing?
Good, how are you? Eddie, close to me. Did you see him?
Let go of my arm.
She's giddy at the fact that she just met Little Richard. Danny asks who's in charge here, and then we zoom over to see, whoosh over to see the back of the head of the legendary actor Dennis Hopper as it gets smashed with a beer bottle. He turns around, punches a guy dead in his face. Who is Dennis Hopper? Dennis Hopper. Oh my gosh, Dennis Hopper. Dennis Hopper was a legendary actor. He was a legend in the game. For a lot of different reasons. He did some great experimental stuff. He was fantastic. He was one of the greatest to ever do it. Dennis Hopper's first role was in Cavalcade of America in 1954. He was in some other legendary stuff too. He was in Rebel Without a Cause. He did a movie with James Dean, Elizabeth Taylor, and Rock Hudson called Giant. He did a movie with Kirk Douglas, Burt Lancaster, Joan Van Fleet, Gunfight at the OK Corral as Billy Clanton. He did a movie with Brando, Sayonara, as the military police. He was the voice of the military police of that. He was uncredited. He did a movie with the original Batgirl, Yvonne Craig, called The Young Land. He was in Petticoat Junction for an episode. Actually, there's somebody else who was in Petticoat Junction, but we'll get to that when we get to that. He was in Bonanza for an episode, the biggest TV show of all time at the time. Gunsmoke, another biggest TV show of all time at the time. And then he did a movie called Easy Rider, where he played Billy. You see, Hopper was friends with Peter Fonda, and there was a writer, Terry Southern, who wrote the movie. And basically, they funded it themselves. So they scraped together $400,000 for this movie, which in today's money is $3,438,615.80 to make this movie. Dennis Hopper directed it and starred in it with Peter Fonda and a young Jack Nicholson. And the next thing you know, they have a box office hit, and they help change the landscape of movies for a long period of time. There is a section of cinema roundabout in the 70s where a lot more low budget stuff got made, but they became critical hits. They became cultural touchstones and milestones because they were actually talking about something, as opposed to just being these larger than life musicals that were basically draining all the studios of all their money and wasn't making it back because people got sick of seeing them. Sound familiar? Well, that's what it was back in the late 60s. Peter Fonda and Dennis Hopper were at the precipice of that. He then goes on 10 years later to do Apocalypse Freaking Now. Then 7 years later, he goes on to do Hoosiers. Then he goes on to scar my generation as King Koopa in the god-awful Super Mario Brothers movie. He then, the next year, goes on to redeem him. But to be fair, Dennis Hopper loved playing King Koopa, and you can see it. And he also loved playing Howard Payne, the villain in the movie Speed, which launched the career of Sandra Bullock and Keanu Reeves. Well, revitalized the career of Keanu Reeves. Keanu Reeves was around for a minute, but started the career of Sandra Bullock, yada, yada, yada. A ton of other credits later. And then he comes and does this episode of Las Vegas. The last credited role Dennis Hopper had was, there are two that I want to make mention of. The last one that he was an actor in was the last film festival in 2016. He played Nick Twain. The last thing you can see him in that he has a credit for is The Other Side of the Wind, where he plays himself. He plays Dennis Hopper. He plays himself. Dennis Hopper appeared in 6 films that were selected for the National Film Registry by the Library of Congress. 6 that, like I said, were culturally important to the landscape of American life. One of them he directed, which was Easy Rider. Here's an interesting thing about him that you could actually kind of see the ticks in John. I would imagine some of that was Dennis Hopper. After staging a suicide attempt, it says, quote unquote, which was actually just a daredevil act, which was big at the time. He put himself in a coffin using 17 sticks of dynamite during an art happening at Rice University Medical Center. And he later disappeared into the Mexican desert. After a huge drug bender. He got his life turned around after that, but that's that's crazy. That's crazy. And you can see that in this guy, John, who just took a beer bottle to the head and then turns around and punches the guy. That's Dennis Hopper. So as Ed takes a few punches at a couple people, he asks,
Drinking on the job again? This is beer. I ain't drinking.
And you know what? He's right. To me, he's right. That beer doesn't, but I know beer does affect some people. It doesn't affect me like that. Beer is if I'm having a beer, it's because I've decided to keep drinking but level out, because beer don't do it for me. In the meantime, Danny took a shot and got saved by some hot-looking girl who's just handling her business in the middle of this brawl. Ed and John they hug each other. They know each other pretty well. They're pretty good. Danny asked,
You need some help over here? Yeah, David. No. AJ will take care of it. Who's that? That's AJ.
and the look. Oh my, the look that she gives the camera after she just beat up grown men with a slapjack and didn't break a nail, but looks like she could. Oh, those eyes. Dangerous. Let's let the dealer shuffle the deck for a second and we'll be right back.
Okay, I'm your amigo. Okay, I'm your amiga. Let's dance the night away until our bodies got fever.
You're listening to Bundeswing by 1989 TRE. If you like what you're hearing and want to hear more, hear it again, or both, just go to Spotify and search 1989 TRE, all one word. That's 1989, the letters TRE.
More drinks, tequila, more memories needed. We're gonna live in the moment, como esta noche para siempre. My life is crazy, just like a movie scene. I've been so many places and seen beautiful things, but my mind is captured by this beautiful queen whose dances got me.
Who is that girl? That girl is Lola Luna Glaudini. And Lola, her first role was in something called Out of Map in 1996, where she played Anna. She then, not long after that, joined NYPD Blue for 22 episodes as Dolores Mayo, Patty Bell, and Karen Thanos. And I imagine Karen Thanos was the last role that got her all those appearances. She also appeared in Andy Richter Controls the Universe for an episode. That's a great show. If you could find it, find it. She then does a thing that I've noticed on these, where a lot of actors, and you're going to see this again in next week's episode, a lot of actors go from one to the other almost immediately. She did an episode of Monk and then immediately came and did Las Vegas. And I've noticed that a few actors on their resumes have the same thing. They either do Las Vegas and then do Monk, or they do Monk and then do Las Vegas, like immediately. I don't know. Immediately. I don't think they were shooting next to each other. I think Monk did a lot of shooting actually in San Francisco, but sure. Okay. She then goes on to do 7 episodes of The Sopranos, don't you know, as Deborah Chicharron Waldrop. She then, you probably know her best from the 28 episodes she did as Elle Greenway in Criminal Minds. That's where I, outside of here, first recognized her, because she was on that for a significant portion of time. She ends up leaving that show she does an episode of The Good Guys, which is fantastic. The last thing you can see her on as of right now is Law and Order SVU. She did 2 episodes of that. One is Lena Hess, one is Virginia Pell. In the last couple of years, that is Lola Luna Glaudini, and she is a problem. Oh my goodness, she is a problem. At least AJ is. I don't know about Lola. Lola might be the sweetest person in the world. AJ's sweet too, but so we go back to the Montecito, and Mary is deluged with complaints about the Holden family. They are messing up the mystique. They are holding a tractor pull in the parking lot, and Mike needs to come over and take care of them. And Nessa comes over, and Mary thinks that it's another problem with the Holdens, but it's not. You see, the wet t-shirt contestants are trying to practice early in the Belisara, but luckily Mike is there. Nessa was talking about some more hero stuff to do. Mike is there to be the hero that we all need and deserve. And man, Las Vegas was not playing with these girls in their wet t-shirts. They were pushing. I thought they pushed the limits last week when they had Sam look for that key. These girls and these wet t-shirts, how they got it, and they got it on they got it on network TV. You'd know that if you saw the original version. Surreal, do you have the original version? No, I don't have the original version. But if you did have the original version, you would see that man. But we cut back to New Orleans, and they're in surveillance, and BMAC checked in, but he hasn't been in the room in 3 days, and they can't figure out exactly where he is. Looks like he checked in and left completely. While that happened, AJ is sizing up Danny, and she's sizing him up quick. She sized up Danny. She asks about the limp. Danny says, I got shot. She looks over at him, says, that hurt? He was like, no. And the look on AJ's face, she sized him up. She sized him up, and she knows Danny is trying to impress her. Of course he is. Look at her. Look. Of course Danny is trying to impress AJ. Look at her. Crying out loud. But AJ sizing him up. In the meantime, Sam has noticed somebody sleeping in the back, which to me is slightly less egregious than that guy who didn't say nothing during the blackout. But okay, this is Pops. Pops is the one that's sleeping, and he is woken up by John, aka Dennis Hopper. And as soon as he wakes up, he sees Sam's lovely figure sitting right in front of him on his desk, and we see I won't call it that, the tattoo on Sam's back, and Pops is immediately intrigued by what he sees.
Hey, Pops, wake up.
I'm not asleep. I'm just resting my eyes.
Pops.
Who is Pops? Pops is played by Jeffrey Lewis. Jeffrey Lewis was also an actor. He, like Dennis Hopper, passed away some years ago. I'm not going to gloss over his thing either, but he does have a long resume. His first credit was with Robert Reed in The Defenders in 1963. He then went on to do an episode of Longstreet with Bruce Lee. He then went on to do... That sounded a little bit different. It could be. He then went on to do... You heard it did. It sounded different, right? We know the normal one that it sounds like. He then went on to do Hawaii Five-0, the original version. Ooh, back in 1977 for an episode. Lady Luck in 1975. Vegas connections all over the place. He also did a TV movie with future Las Vegas star Tom Selleck. Tom Selleck loved those TV movies, didn't he? / doesn't he? Does he do TV movies anymore? I think he's just doing Blue Bloods. I don't even think, he might still be doing that like Western one that he was doing. He also did a couple episodes of The A-Team. He also did a couple episodes of Magpie, Magnum P.I. He also did an episode of MacGyver, Designing Women, Golden Girls, back to back. Strangely enough, this is one that caught me. He was in Square One TV. Do you remember Square One TV? I love Square One TV. You did Square One TV back in '88. That's fantastic. Taught me how to math. Yada, yada, yada. A whole bunch of other things that you should all look up. His IMDb is widely available. He then does this episode of Las Vegas as Pops Castile. They gave him a last name, so you know it was important. He then goes on to do Voodoo Moon, in keeping with the theme here in New Orleans, Voodoo Moon, which was a TV movie in 2006. The last credit that he has to his credit apparently came out posthumously. It was High and Outside, a baseball noir. He had a couple that apparently came out posthumously. The High and Outside, a baseball noir in 2017, where he played Lynn Harding. That was Jeffrey Lewis. Jeffrey Lewis, like many a young, old, and in-between man, is incredibly infatuated with Vanessa Sam Marquez Marcel, and who wouldn't be? So here we are. We see that Mahalio is checked in, but we don't see anything else about him. He hasn't been found in any hospitals anywhere. He's still alive somewhere. So Ed thinks he's playing somewhere. They just got to find where. As they're trying to figure it out, apparently there's a fight that's happening downstairs, and AJ immediately goes to work. That's her favorite. She takes off her jacket and she's ready to throw down. When you cut down to it, you hear the song, musical check here, La Cassine Special, Lacassine Special by Sammy Naquin. Now, on all versions, it seems to play this song, but on the streaming versions, it seems to start earlier in the song. Either that or the replacement song sounds so much like the early part of that same song that it really doesn't matter. Either way, find it. It's a pretty good song, actually. As we see the people fight in the Montecito in New Orleans, it phases to the Holdens fighting in the Montecito in Las Vegas. And we hear another song here. I can't place this song, but I've heard it a million times before. You've heard it a million times before on commercials, on movies, different productions. You have heard this song a million times before, but for some reason, my Kazaa seems to think that it doesn't exist. It does exist. I know it exists. Maybe it's a production song, but even then, I should have heard something. It should have been sampled somewhere. You know this song, and it's on all versions of this episode. The Holdens are fighting because they're trying to figure out what they want to do. If they want to see La Nude review or Mamma Mia, go see the review. Mamma Mia is overrated. We got to Belisara, or we whooshed through to Belisara, and Mike is just, he's upstanding. He is there. If he had a cannon blast to give these ladies, he would. But he has to try to tell them that they can't practice their wet t-shirt contest there in Belisara. And he says it's distracting for the other guests. One of the contestants says,
distracting? How can this be distracting?
Well, here's the other part. You're getting water everywhere. Do you know how wet the t-shirt only absorbs so much water, and they're literally pouring water on themselves, and it's falling everywhere. If it's the hardwood floor, you're creating a slip issue. If it's a carpet, like most of the casinos, usually most parts of the casino usually are, even the bars, or at least Belisara, I believe, is carpeted. You're creating a possible mold issue. You got to stop. Listen, as somebody who understands consequences, I almost called myself old. Don't you dare. Don't you dare. As somebody who understands consequences at least a little bit, you got to stop. You're killing me. You're killing. Now, mind you, yes, they're going to come in with the carpet cleaners or whatever, but you're just creating extra work. You got to wait to the contest, baby. But I'll tell you what. Look, I'll tell you what, if I was walking around the Montecito and I saw wet t-shirt contests happening in broad daylight the way they are, I'd go to, guess what? I'm going to the real one. I'll be there. Count me in. You know what? You earn my $5 or whatever the entry fee is. So they use that opportunity to cut to the water cascading down the ladies' pectoral regions to water flowing through the back of a riverboat. Now, the thing about that riverboat is that quick scene wasn't in New Orleans. It was actually the Ohio River that was shown. going through downtown Pittsburgh. So not New Orleans, but we'll count it anyway. we'll pretend that it is. So Pops is flirting with Sam. He is going in on Sam. He asks her if it's her first time in New Orleans, and Sam says to Pops that
That's very sweet, Pops, but I'm gay.
Oh, you're happy.
I like girls.
and then Pops, without skipping a beat because he doesn't believe her, says,
Ah. Well, that don't make no difference to me. You see, I am a lesbian trapped in a man's body, and I figure we could manage to get along pretty well.
Sam can't believe this guy. Danny is hearing the whole thing. Sam can't believe this guy. Watch Sam's facial expression as we go later on in this episode. It won't be what you think it is. Ed is laying back on John's couch, and they're trying to figure out, John is trying to figure out what brings the president of the flagship all the way out to New Orleans just for one person. And we get a little bit of that slight backstory is that Ed promised to take care of the kid, and he really likes the kid, etc. So they couldn't find anything on the boat, and Danny mentions aft and starboard, etc. And that tips John off that Ed got himself another military guy.
All right, we checked every boat. Aft, port, starboard, no sign of him.
The aft, port, and starboard. What are you, sailor?
Marine.
You love those military backgrounds, don't you?
Yeah, it's a good foundation to build on.
You serve?
No, I was never too good at marching in straight line.
And that leads into figuring out that John may or may not have been on the force. And it's an interesting shot here because when Danny asks that, AJ dips her head. She knows something, but she doesn't want to say exactly what she knows. She knows the subject is maybe a little touchy. And he asked that. One of the key things here is he asked that, and guess what? Dennis Hopper played in Speed, an ex-cop. Yeah, his character was an ex-cop. That's a nice little nugget there. But also, it's laying foundation because this is a backdoor pilot. Remember all the mystery that we were supposed to that we have with Ed and his CIA past, and Nessa and her past with her dad, and Danny and his past with Mary, and all, that mystery? Yeah. They're building that here. This is a backdoor pilot if I've ever seen a backdoor pilot. However, what they don't do is they don't move the main characters completely to the side so that you are stuck with these characters that you may or may not like. They interact with these characters. We're interacting with Pops and John and AJ. We're interacting with the city of New Orleans. We're interacting with a lot of other characters that come later on. And they're all fitting it into this episode. As far as backdoor pilots go, it's a really good one, except for the fact that it doesn't make that there is no New Orleans TV show. And I suppose that's the real test of a backdoor pilot. Does the network pick it up? They didn't pick this up. But you can't tell me to say a backdoor pilot. It's 1,000% a backdoor pilot. But they're trying to and I, by the way, am intrigued. I want to know John's story on the Force. I want to know why he's not there anymore. I want to know his connection to AJ and the real connection to Pops. That's what I want to know. And so does Danny. He asked AJ if he got booted off the Force, and AJ says he ain't telling, and I didn't ask, and he ain't telling. And then Danny asked for coffee, and to me, it doesn't sound like flirting, but AJ does say that sounds like a line if I ever heard one. Did she pick it up as flirting? I don't know.
Hey, what do you say we get a cup of coffee?
Well, that sounds like a line if ever I heard one.
Well, if she did, Danny tells her it's not a line. He just wants a cup of coffee. And she comes back with the way she says this is so condescending, but you let her get away with it.
Look, smartass is not a line. I just want a cup of coffee, all right?
Oh, we can get you a cup of coffee.
Thank you.
It is at that point where Danny asks for the cup of coffee that AJ literally says in French,
Je vais te taquiner, garçon de Vegas.
which translates loosely to I will tease you. Oh, Daniel. Oh, Daniel, I know. You're the sexiest man in all of sexy men in all the sexiest land, which is, of course, Las Vegas. You're the sexiest of all the sexies in the sexiest land. But I think you may have ticked AJ off. Anyway, while they go off to get their cups of coffee, Pops is intently flirting with Sam and talking about the mind-boggling situations that being a man trapped in a lesbian's body creates.
Sammy, darling, do you have any idea what it is like to be a lesbian trapped in this body?
I can only imagine.
Well, it does present some mind-boggling situations. Think you could throw an old man a bone?
And you can, the look on Sam's face is one that of not exasperation, disbelief. But it's of disbelief. This is a rare one, kids. It's of disbelief from a woman who can't believe. Here's what she can't believe. Yes, sure, she can't believe that Pops is saying this. But she also, and probably more prominently, can't believe might be working. She might like it because Pops is charming. She might be charmed by this. It might be working. That's what she can't believe. She's looking at him like, why is this working? Why is he charming? Why? Like she almost like she's like, am I considering this? In the office, Ed and Sam and John spot the guy Glenn, the criminal, at the tables, and he's signaling to some of his accomplices who are following Mahalio. All right, it's time to move. It's time to fight. They get down to the casino floor, and as they do, we hear a musical cue here. This one, you got to help me with this one. This is in all versions. The song is called Quoi fare tu jamais appelle mo. QUIFARETUJAMAIAPELE by Sun Pi and the Louisiana Sunspot. Sun Pi gets quite a few credits here in this episode as well. He should. He does some good Zydeco work here, and Ed and John are doing some good roughhousing work here of the thugs, the accomplices, their local thugs. You see, AJ and Danny take off after the real criminal, while Ed has a guy pinned to one of the tables in an armbar, and it works. And we go back here to the riverboat in Pittsburgh as we whoosh through the casino, the Montecito in New Orleans, and Danny is wringing out his clothes, and we see the water hit the floor. Like I said before with the wet t-shirt contestants, because they're on a tile floor, where's the water going to go? It doesn't immediately evaporate. It's got to go somewhere. It's got to fall. And so it falls on the tile floor. Pops gives Danny some of his pants that look to be incredibly big. Pops says they used to be his, so he probably was a lot bigger back then. Again, that's something that we could talk about if we get a show picked up. People talk about, I know. We all wanted Las Vegas to end better. And we all wanted Las Vegas to have the ending that it should have had. If it was going to have an ending at all, we wanted it to, it should have had a better ending. I wanted to see New Orleans. And this was a great time. I wanted to see New Orleans. And it actually probably wouldn't have been a terrible. Now, mind you, I guess for the fun level, they'd have had to change the tone of the show. They would have had to change the tone of the show entirely because of Hurricane Katrina. It would have had to have been a rebuilding show. It would have had to. It was kind of. I would imagine when we get. Yeah. We'll get to that later. Pops is there talking to Danny, trying to warn him about the last guy to try to kiss AJ. And Danny says he wasn't trying to kiss AJ. He was trying to catch the bad guy, Mark Glenn. And Pops warns him, if she invites you to go down to meet her family, don't go. he says,
Let me tell you something, and you listen good. If that girl invites you to go down and meet her family, don't you go. You hear what I'm saying? She takes boys out into the bayou and they never come back.
What do you mean they never come back?
They never come back. She took 2 boys and a horse out there. What's it, a horse? Hey, say, AJ.
here's the thing. I believe him. So AJ comes back with some coffee. He finally gets his coffee.
You enjoy your swim?
Yeah, that was nice. You know, right up until the gator part.
Oh, it was a teeny gator.
And then she asks him,
You know, for a slick big city Vegas boy, you ain't half bad. You want to meet my family?
the way she said that. The way she said that. Even have Pops not giving the warning, Daddy should go. Daddy should go.
Why don't you take a little break?
Yeah, that's a good idea. You go stretch the legs, wash the face, refocus.
There you go.
I assume you're interested in large amounts of money.
It's Vegas, who isn't?
If you like the podcast and you want to help support it, you can send a Cash App, join our Patreon or Subscribe Star, or buy us a coffee. Just search The Podecito on all those platforms. So Danny is sipping his coffee, trying to warm up, and he is wondering exactly what she put in the coffee.
What is this?
Coffee.
That is not coffee.
It is in New Orleans. We call that chicory.
Yeah, that's chicory.
I've never had chicory. Apparently, it seems like it's not a good flavor, at least to Danny, but what do I know? Some people like licorice. According to Google, chicory tastes bitter but woody and nutty with a coffee-like taste. So maybe, and also I don't drink coffee. So maybe it does fit halfway well in with coffee. I don't know. I don't know if I ever will know. Maybe I will. I might try a sip just for the heck of it, but I've never gone through the trouble of getting chicory, in part because I don't do coffee in general anyway. We whoosh through and we see Ed and John talking about how they're going to follow up on following the thugs. And then Mr. Brunson calls Ed and John gives him a little bit of a teasing about how,
You know, it's really starting to concern me. You don't have one bit, not 1 ounce of care about this problem.
Well, you see, it's your ass that's on the line to Brunson for the $4.5 million, not mine.
I get it. Listen, because I'm president now, so listen what I can do. I officially put your ass on mine, too. How do you like that?
You work too.
and as I'm watching this scene, I can't help but think to myself, they're doing all this because Brunson calls in to try to check in on his $4.5 million he needs to account for the audit. But I can't help but thinking, how much is this costing them to track down the $4.5 million? Right? They got to gas up the jet. They got to, I'm sure, expense everything that they're doing here, including the clothes for however long this excursion is going to take. Danny's got to change. Danny's going to change clothes. He's getting the next scene. His clothes aren't anywhere near dry right now. I think they might only be there they're only going to be there for the night, but they don't know that they're only going to be there for the night. And then they got to gas the jet up again. How much are they spending on that? How much of that adds to the $4.5 million? That this, I mind you, probably at that point it's probably not millions, but it's definitely double-digit thousands probably. John suggests that they go to AJ's party because that's where there's going to be another game, a game that Mahalio probably will go to because he's a gambler and is addicted to gambling, and that's probably the most likely place that they'll go. So regardless of the warning not to, Danny's going to have to go to AJ's families. I would love to meet more of AJ's family. We are only going to see a few members of her family, or at least meet a few members of her family, but it's going to be interesting. So they're going to go, and meanwhile, they're going to go to the party. Ed and John are going to try to check out Mahalio's room, and Sam is going to check out the Voodoo Priestess. The Voodoo Priestess in the House of Voodoo, the song that we hear during this scene on all forms, you know, I will give them credit. I will give NBC credit on this one. They did a lot of keeping the original songs on this episode. A ton. And the ones that they replaced, by and large, weren't replaced awfully. Okay. This one they kept all the way through. It's called It's Your Voodoo by Charles Sheffield. It's a great song. You should look it up. And it'll also be at the end. We'll get to that when we get to that. AJ leads Danny through the bayou as Sam is contemplating whether she's going to stay in the house of voodoo. And as she does, Danny is having to tangle with the leaves all around him, giant mosquitoes, something that called in the distance, a vampire bat.
You know, you're really starting to... What the hell was that?
Vampire bat.
A vampire bat?
Goodness, Danny. So Sam is in the voodoo priestess's place, and voodoo priestess offers her some dolls.
Although there are a few people I'd love to shove a pen in.
2 for 1. Carnival special.
Maybe later.
Keep that in mind. As they do, Sam breaks down the fact that she's looking for Mahalio and needs a little help locating him. And after she does, that the voodoo priestess tells her that she's got just the thing and lays a dead rat down there. And Sam asks, please tell me I don't have to eat that. And the voodoo priestess laughs, a laugh that's somehow more maniacal than Sam's. Sam's smile leaves her face, and the rat comes to life and morphs into a rat that we would see at the Zydeco party. Danny's looking at it, and we hear Zydeco playing in the distance as we see people playing poker. Mahalio's not over there, but there is a pig roasting, getting spit roasted. There's food everywhere. It's a down-home party. They got a fish boil on the table. It's rocking. It is rocking and reeling. The songs that now, here we go with the wishy-washy musical rights. The song that you hear on the original version is a song called Creole's Farmer's Stomp by Creole Zydeco. If you like Zydeco, it's a great song. If you want a song that makes you feel New Orleans, like that's a good one, you should do that. The DVD has another good one. It's called Crawfish Party by Andrew Mazzone. That's another good song. That's another really good song. I of the two, I like them both. It's hard for me to tell which one is the best. I'll tell you what, though, they're both better than the AI song, which in and of itself actually isn't terrible. Again, we've had much worse AI songs. This one isn't bad, but it's definitely AI production music. As we're still at the party, we see Pops getting down, dancing with a beautiful woman. Apparently, he never misses a party during Carnival, and that's where they are. And then we see a grunting three giant men. And AJ says, "These are my brothers." And she says she's going to go grab some mud bugs. Danny is completely lost. He has no idea. Weren't you in the Marines? None of your buddies were from the South, Danny, when you were over there? Even basic training? You didn't basic train? I didn't know you did basic train in Vegas. I know they shipped you out somewhere. He's trying to cozy himself up to these giants. And Danny's a big boy, too. Danny's pretty big. So I'd imagine the actors are probably standing on some boxes. He holds his hand out. He tries to introduce himself.
It's got names? Yeah, we got names. I'm We Gonna. He's Kick. And that's your ass.
That's funny.
We ain't laughing, boy.
So they do not like Danny being friendly with their sister. This is not the last time Danny's going to find some resistance to that. Pops comes in and saves him, thank goodness. And as they do, Pops reveals that they could have come any way but the bayou. Pops came in a limo, for crying out loud. And Danny asks if she's ever going to stop messing with him. She says, if you know French or now have Google Translate, no, she's not. She's gonna keep screwing with him. Danny wants to leave because Mahalio's not there. However, there's a stranger coming in for the game that does fit the description. So, in the meantime, while Danny sucks down a crawfish, they're going to dance. Oh, and the way they come on. This is how you sell a show. You gonna tell me, oh, look at Lola dance. I can't even focus on Danny and his terrible dancing because I have Lola there. And while Danny is still not dancing well, this is the best I've ever seen him dance. And part of it is because he's not really doing anything but hugging up on AJ. And why wouldn't you? And Josh got paid for it. Good God. Good. There's no justice in the world sometimes. So Ed and John are in the hallway, and you can tell with shots like this that they used the sets that they had for Las Vegas. Which is easy to do when you're just going to another Montecito hotel, right? And they talk about how they miss the action that they had, but they also give us some exposition. Apparently, they cooperated with each other, at least not officially, because the CIA is not authorized to operate domestically officially. Let's not talk about that in real life. But the series lets us know that they know that that they know. And so John says,
Well, as a stranger, I'd like to thank you for putting in a good word for me here, because I know I'd never have this job without you.
That's good. And then Ed asks John if he and AJ are related, and John says,
We could be.
Great line read again, and it puts more intrigue, it lays more foundation. I want to know about these characters. I want to know their backstory. I want to see them grow and flourish. I want to see AJ in different types of environments for her character and different struggles and figuring things out, and when she can't just punch her way out of something. Let's sigh. But we cut back to the Montecito. Nessa tells Ed over the phone that Mahalio moved $3 million. That's a lot of money. How much is $3 million in today's money? $3 million in today's money is $5,010,476.44. That's how much Mahalio moved, because Mahalio is ready to play. Apparently not. Mahalio is terrible at poker. It sounds like at bet gambling. It sounds like. But in any event, we cut to the wet t-shirt contest. And Mary, this is one thing that I do want to point out. Mary is introducing the wet t-shirt contest, and she's acting like she is so put about by having to do the wet t-shirt contest. Miss Mary, aren't you the events coordinator for the whole casino? You either set the concert up or knew about it well enough in advance to be okay with it. Miss me with the, oh, I can't believe I'm doing this. Stop it. Dude, stop it. What? You're the coordinator. You knew what was going down. Mike is front row. The grin on his face is fantastic. He can't wait to get into this wet t-shirt contest. And I know you can't either, but we're going to have to wait at least a little bit. The music, if you're watching on the original version, Peacock, Amazon, or Roku, you will hear a song called Operate by Peaches, which is fine for what it is. It's definitely a song that you would hear in one of the club scenes in Mystique. It sounds like it fits there. But they use it here for the wet t-shirt contest on every incarnation except the DVD. The DVD incarnation uses a song called How We Do by Mount Sims. And I like that one way better than Operate by Peaches. Operate by Peaches is not a bad song. I don't like it in this scene. Especially compared to How We Do by Sims. First off, the way it's cut works better. The sound, it sounds better. It sounds more natural for it. It sounds more like a song that would be played at something like this. And it works well with the way Mike dances as he's front row center with the big goofy grin on his face, losing all his cool. But it fits better. But that's what we have here for the world's largest wet t-shirt contest. And let me tell you something, the world's largest wet t-shirt contest. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 girls so far on what looks to be a small stage. There's one more over there, so that's 9. This isn't the world's largest. I haven't gotten to double digits yet. This is not the world's largest. But let's see, they're committed to the wet t-shirtness of the bit. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. With the one in orange. 8, 9, 10. Okay, now we're in double digits. 11. 11? That's not the world's largest. 11? 11? That's the world's largest. 11 girls on a tiny stage is the world's largest? Stop it. we do get a nice, a funny one here with the older guy with the binoculars who's sitting there watching, and then one of the Holden cousins, you see her back there watching too. So everybody's watching the wet t-shirt contest. It is fantastic.
All right. Yes. Hose him down.
Yeah, make sure you wet all the ladies. We want to be fair and square. Oh yeah, oh yeah.
We cut out a commercial from that, going back onto the city of New Orleans, and Ed is there with John in Mahalio's room. As we hear some music here too. On the original version, as well as the DVD, you hear a song called Dance Cajun Dance by the Cajun Playboys. Good song. On the streaming services, you hear a song called Mamu Two-Step, MAMOU, spelled out two-step with the dash in between, by Universal Production Music, which, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's not as good as Dance Cajun Dance, but it's fine. Ed and John are trying to figure some stuff out. Apparently, John got a call notifying him that the thugs that they chased down and beat up a little bit earlier, they went off to a pawn shop and they bought themselves some guns on this little shopping spree, which is not good for their chances of finding Mahalio or Mahalio's chances of making it out of there alive. And so now they got to figure out what's going on, because Ed tells John that Mahalio got transferred $3 million. So that means he's going to the big game. John was talking about some other backdoor games, but now there's a big money game during Mardi Gras, but it's hard to find. It shuffles around from place to place. It's hard to find. It's a secret. And we'll get back to that in a second. But it's a secret, so they have to hunt down exactly where this giant game is. But they know it exists. They just have to hunt it down. We cut back to the Montecito in Las Vegas, and we're back to the wet t-shirt contest again. And Mike is just in heaven until he's trying to figure out if the girl that Mary said earlier is a guy really is a guy. He's definitely in heaven, but then it cuts back to her, and he's like, "That's not a guy, is it? Is it?" He can't tell. I mean, they are pouring it on, literally pouring it on with this wet t-shirt contest, especially on the DVD. I think the DVD version might be a little bit longer. I think they cut in an extra few seconds or so. But we cut back to Mike dancing in the front row, and he just can't quite see if that one girl is a guy or not. She's not. But again, like I mentioned, she has some slightly strong features. The Holdens are fighting still because they haven't figured out exactly what they want to do. Some people wanted to go to dinner. Some people wanted to do the wet t-shirt contest. Turns out they're going to dinner whether the people want to or not. The other cousins want to or not. And they're fighting for sure in Mystique. And Delinda is not having any of it. They are causing a ruckus. People are leaving because of the fighting. Even Delinda can't offer them to comp. And Roy says, if you want the money so bad, you can have it. Tosses some money in the air. And Delinda asks, why can't Ed be around whenever she needs him? Well, because Ed is busy, Delinda. You see, they figured out where the big game is, or at least they're going to try to figure out where the big game is. John is going to call the mayor and try to figure it out because it changes time and place and date every year. So they're going to try to find an invitation. In the meantime, Ed gets a call or is calling to Danny to try to get him back from the party. As we go back to the party, we see Pops he is dancing till he can't dance anymore. The music that we play here in all versions, and this is another one that I'm very glad that they kept on all the versions, is a song called Funky Zydeco by Sun Pie and the Louisiana Sunspots. I am tremendously happy that they kept this song. It's very catchy. It is super duper, at least to me. I like Zydeco though. I do like Zydeco. So this is super catchy. Zydeco is an acquired taste. You know, if you're not into that Louisiana sound or whatever. I like it. I had a Zydeco tape in here somewhere. Yes, I said tape, kids. They're trying to get, or Ed needs to try to get Danny back from the party. AJ doesn't want to let him go, though. She's dancing with them, but realistically, she's gonna mess with him. But she doesn't want to let him go. And they're definitely dancing. So, okay. I have a better view of Danny not being able to dance.
They got some funky music that they call Zydeco. You know your little sister's doing it, and your grandma too. She was getting down, Lord have mercy, way back in 1962. She put her hands on your shoulders.
He's dancing for a lot longer. He is the awkward, he is the cool, he's the sexiest man of all sexy men in the sexiest land, and maybe the worst. He is just not good. He's having fun though. I'll give this to Josh. Josh is having fun. I hope it's not Josh. I think I've said this before too. I hope Josh isn't a bad dancer. I hope Danny's a bad dancer. I hope Josh isn't. But if Josh is a bad dancer, at least he's having fun. So John gets an invite to the big game via the mayor, which does also set up the fact that John has connections in the town, which is something that would be coming up in the show New Orleans if they were able to do it, but unfortunately they weren't. Ed is able to find out that via Nessa that Mahalio is moving the money now. So while they know exactly where it is, and John has to commandeer the phone to get AJ to bring Danny back, please, for the sake of the dance, bring Danny back. But they see Sam coming out of the Voodoo Queens store, and Ed says that's all he needs right now. Hold on a second. Let's get a new deck in here, and we'll be right back. For the freshest and in-depth reactions and analysis of all the goings-on in hip-hop, sports, poetry, and everything else, go to Poetics Reacts on YouTube. Hosted by world-famous poet and chef Mr. Poetic, Poetics Reacts gives you points of view you never thought of and never thought of saying out loud. Go to YouTube and search Poetics Reacts or tinyurl.com/Poetics Reacts now. That's POETIXREACTS. Mike is partying with some of the wet t-shirt contestants, including the one with the terrible wig. That's an awful wig. I don't know why they put that wig on her. That is an awful wig. They did not need the light-skinned black girl. If you're watching this on the DVD, light-skinned black girl in the middle, and you'll see her on the contest too. Her wig is terrible. It is bad, and it looks like it may be a bump it too. Ugh. Wait, were Bumpets around? Bumpets weren't around yet, so I don't know what they were doing. Just bad.
Ladies, I think you're all winners. Really, I do. And if it were up to me, I would crown each and every one of you.
Mike is definitely partying with them. They're all winners to him. We whoosh through the casino and we see Delinda storm out of Mystique because the Holdens are destroying the restaurant with a food fight. Can you believe it?
They're destroying my restaurant. Oh my God.
Delinda's got some spaghetti on her face, but Mary's got a whole pie on the side of her face. Oh, and this is why I love Nikki Cox. The take of her doing that, and she's hiding the smile, but the take of her doing that, and she fits it perfectly. And then she does the pose to open her eyes so that we go to the next scene where we see the cake that's in the shape of a Mardi Gras mask. What a trooper, what an actress, Nikki Cox. And Nikki Cox is the perfect one to take that shot too, because that is like right in her wheelhouse. She had to have enjoyed that immensely. Like Nikki Cox to me seems like, of all the female cast members, she seems more pie in the face like. And we've seen, and again, she comes from sitcoms. We've seen her in ludicrous situations on Unhappily Ever After and on Nikki. So it's not abnormal for her to do that, and it fits with her because she knows what she's doing, and it works for her. She likes it. So we cut back to the party, and we get another musical cue here. This song, you're gonna have to help me out here. Toot quel EHTOUTQUELQ'Un by Sun Pie. That's the song. It's on all the versions that you'll hear. It is a great song. And they talk about the food of New Orleans. Again, just like Las Vegas, they're trying to sell you the city of New Orleans. They're trying to sell you in going to New Orleans. And they talk about the food, they talk about the parties, they talk about I don't even think they really talk about the women, but they talk about the New Orleans experience, and talk about chicory. They're trying to invite you to want to go to New Orleans. And then Danny, so impressed with the food, tries to feed some to AJ, who cuts back with the line,
"You gotta try this, it's great."
Oh, you want my ass to start looking like two pigs fighting to get out of a gunny sack when I watch?
Is that a trick question?
Does Danny like them thick? What? Maybe Loretta had a shot. Maybe Swizzle Stick Lady had a shot. Or maybe it's a different type of thick. But does Danny like them thick? Listen, you in the right place, Danny. John and AJ hip Danny to the Mardi Gras mask. You're supposed to hide your identity. You have to hide your identity. It's part of the tradition.
What keeps everyone from running amok?
Nothing.
Sounds like a recipe for chaos to me.
Oh, we like to get into trouble during Carnival here in New Orleans. Oh, yeah.
Mark Lynn, Kevin Brown, Hank Jones are here. They're after Mahayo and the money. Let's get it on.
AJ, ahead of them, talks to Danny and talks about the mask situation. He says,
"You know, I thought Vegas was the decadence capital of the world."
You know that whole what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas things you guys got going?
Yeah?
I got news for you. Started a long time ago here in New Orleans. What happens behind the mask stays behind the mask.
AJ is correct. Well, I've never been to New Orleans. I do have a search history that pairs out for what she's saying. Anyway, we see the thugs put on masks, put on clear masks, because they're about to enter the party, and I don't think it's to dance the way other people are. There's a shotgun, there's a nice size pistol, there's a pump action. They're ready to do it. So we cut back, we see a sign that says cemetery closed. And speaking of cemeteries, we see a couple people coming out of the cemetery set that people are dancing in, and they're fixing their clothes. I wondered, did they just go in there to read poetry? Possibly. Or did they go in there to read lyrics of the song that's playing now? On the original version, the song that's playing is You're No Good For Me by Rosie Ledet, Ledet. Great song. That's my favorite. On the DVD version, you're hearing a song called Johnny Can't Dance by Ray Abshire. Another good song. I like the Rosie one better, but another good song. If you're watching on Peacock and or Amazon and or Roku, you are going to hear an AI song that is not great. It's not terrible. It's not the worst. It's not the worst, but it's definitely an AI song, and it is for sure an AI song. The dead giveaway is it ends on the exact moment the scene has to end, and it's not they cut it. It's again, they put it in Chat GTP, said we need it for 3 minutes and 22 seconds, and the song ends at 3 minutes and 22 seconds exactly. Sam is going around saying that she needs to find a flock of birds because that's what the voodoo lady said. She doesn't know what flock of birds means. Meanwhile, John is hipping Danny to what is going on in terms of the game. You can play. The players have already bought in, but you have to party first before you can play. Here's what caught my eye. The people setting up the game, this quote-unquote secret game, are using a Montecito clipboard. Do they work for the Montecito? How secret is this? Wait a second. There's going to be another question coming a little bit later. So everybody's got to party before they can play. Danny decides that he's going to go and talk to Sam for half a second. And as he does, he basically teases Sam. He says,
So much for Mahalia only wanted to play at the Montecito, they're genius.
So much for you not being a dog.
Excuse me?
You and Little Miss Southern Comfort.
That happens to be a professional courtesy.
Ah, is that what they call it in New Orleans?
Yeah.
In Vegas, we call that a hoe.
What is your problem?
And as soon as she says that, on all versions, there's this weird cut from the 2-shot to her walking away. I wonder if that was the cleanest shot they could possibly get, if they were under a time schedule, if Sam held it for too long before she walked away, what the cut was. That's a weird cut. It doesn't fit. She's in a different position than she was the last cut. And it wasn't like an action scene, so you don't really notice it. They're static. That cut is too weird. It shouldn't be there. That's just a cinematography thing. I didn't like that cut. But I may or may not like Sam's attitude towards Danny on this. Why is she so up on Danny? Is it because she thought Danny was something else? Remember, we're only a couple episodes from her opening up her clamshell because of Danny and his genuine interest in her in terms of her as a person? Or is she sticking up for Mary? One wonders. In any event, she is not happy that Danny and AJ seem to have some kind of chemistry, even if most of it is just AJ teasing him. Meanwhile, Ed and John, they take down the thugs. You see Ed spots one of them based on the tattoo on his neck, which he didn't cover up. And why would he that might require some forethought. But Ed and John take down the thugs before the thugs have a chance to shoot up the party. They got a gun up in their waist. They forcing them not to shoot up the place, as one poet might have said a couple of decades ago.
Stop! Let me see your hands, boy.
This me?
I'll take it from here, Ed.
After they take down the thugs and the gunmen, Sam spots Mahalia in the flock of birds, aka girls with feathers around them. And so as she and Ed go up to Mahalia, she removes her mask. It turns out it is him. And Ed has a talk with the kid in John's office as we go through Mardi Gras. So Mahalia transfers back the money. Ed has to talk to him about his gambling ways, his obvious gambling problem, and everything is put to rest in a nice way. There's no thumbs that have to be broken, but Ed does put a little pressure on the kid's clavicle as the kid is asking why he can't play at the Montecito again, like he didn't just cause a whole bunch of trouble and have guys with guns almost want to shoot him in not broad daylight, but out in public. Put the cards down, kid. Put the cards down. So we're about to finish up. Sam is listening to Little Richard play in the lounge of the Montecito, New Orleans. The song that's playing is Slipping and it's Sliding, and it's on all versions that you're going to hear. Again, good job there, sound people of Las Vegas. AJ, if she's ever in Las Vegas, has an invite from Danny to look her up.
Hey, if you're ever in Vegas,
I'll look you up.
And she 100% will. And that's another thing. She could have come to Las Vegas for an episode. Well, yeah, come on. come on down to Vegas and see what's happening. But we get to hear Little Richard playing with Lisa Hadley and the Zyda Cats in the lounge as Ed and John say their goodbyes.
Well, I want to say thanks, John. I appreciate everything.
My pleasure.
And for whatever the heck it's worth, I always thought you did the right thing, even though it cost you your job there on the force.
I can't tell you how much that means to me, Ed, coming from you.
I want to know what that thing is. What is the thing? What got John kicked off the force? What happened to John? But we don't know that. We're not going to know, unfortunately, what got him kicked off the force. And another fight breaks out, and AJ is immediately there to jump into the fray. Just a big old tomboy ready to knock some heads around. Danny and Ed have to carry Sam out because, again, she's starstruck by Little Richard, and she doesn't want to leave the concert.
Let's go. Ed, it's Little Richard. He's singing. Come back again. Au revoir.
Why would you? Little Richard, he invented rock and roll. He never got the credit he deserved. Little Richard don't get nothing.
I have never received nothing. You all never gave me no Grammy. And I've been singing for years. I am the architect of rock and roll. They never gave me nothing. And I am the originator. And I still say, woo! And the winner is still me.
You didn't even get to have Sam sit there and watch the whole thing. But they're back at the Montecito in Las Vegas. As they get there, it turns out that Brunson demanded that Ed join him in New York. So he did. He had to turn the jet around. They had to go to New York where they dropped him off. And Roy is just upset because he feels like he's lost his family over the money. And Mary is there to talk to him and let him know that he didn't he didn't lose his family over the money.
Look, Roy, you're controlling your family with the money.
I'm just trying to do what's right for them. They don't know the pressure all this money causes.
Yeah, but if you keep control of the money, Roy, you're going to lose your family.
You think I already lost them?
Well, actually, everybody's over to barbecue. And I'm pretty sure they'd love it if you came. In fact, I know they would because I set the barbecue up.
Meanwhile, all Sam heard was money, and she immediately comes over. But before she does, Mary sprinkles in a little bit of Montecito magic. We didn't talk about Montecito magic here in this episode. There was some Montecito voodoo. And we'll see a little bit more of that in just a little bit. And we're at the end of the episode. But Montecito magic, Mary's going to play just a little bit of it here as she put together a barbecue for the family one last day while they're there. And hopefully it'll bring the family back together. And she tells Roy that they expect to see him there. But before he does, he can't. He is relentlessly attacked by Sam, who immediately wants to be his casino host.
But you might want to consider handing over control of the money to an administrator.
Or you could come back to Vegas anytime with all that money. I'm Sam, and I would love to be your casino host.
Roy, I'd
have you no decency.
Which, by the way, is just a weird. It is curious. Well, maybe it's not curious. Maybe Mary was trying to save Roy from Sam. I would imagine under normal circumstances, Mary would refer Sam to somebody like Roy, but maybe she was trying. It was Mary's big heart trying to save the guy. Mike recaps the wet t-shirt contest, and we see who won. And the boys can't believe that she's a girl, or that she's not a girl. She is. And the girls all get together because Sam brought them all gifts. Turns out they're voodoo dolls, and we hear "It's Your Voodoo" one last time as the show ends. Before it does, Nessa and Sam stick a pin in the backside of these dolls.
Yeah. Voodoo dolls. Let's do it.
And it seems to work on Mike and Danny. What? As we zoom out, we whoosh out from the episode. That is tremendous. I liked it. And I'm sitting here at the credits and I'm looking to see what they credit the brothers as. It's Hulking Cajun brother number 1, Robert Bone Crusher Mooks. That's it. So he doesn't get credited as We Gonna. He should have got credited as We Gonna. They should have gave him that. They should have credited him as We Gonna. They should have. Come on. They missed an opportunity. They should have credited him as We Gonna. You know another opportunity that was missed? New Orleans, the TV show. My rating for this, damn the sevens. My rating for this is a solid 8.5, maybe 9. I'm gonna say 9. I like this episode. It's not a perfect. It's not a perfect episode. It's pretty. I like it. I'm rating this a 9. I like 9 out of 10. I like this episode. I really love this episode. I would have loved to have seen a Las Vegas spinoff called New Orleans, a Las Vegas franchise. Now, GST would later get his franchise, and good for him. But New Orleans was so good. It was a good episode, and it did, in fact, build a world that we didn't get to see, probably because, and by the way, there's no information anywhere. There's never been any information about it officially being a backdoor pilot. There's never been any information about what happened with the backdoor pilot, what the official word was. There's never even been acknowledgement that this was a backdoor pilot, which it clearly was. I don't even know if TV Tropes has this as a backdoor pilot, and they have everything. Yeah, I have to check, but I don't even know if they do. But this is a great backdoor pilot. Again, for all the reasons that I've talked about, bad backdoor pilots often bring in new characters, and you don't get to see or you don't get to interact much with the characters that you already know. Good one like this one establishes the world. They interact with the people that you already know, so there's already that connection. They might interact later on if whatever the circumstances may be, and it works. And you see stuff like that. And by the way, these spinoffs happen all the time. CBS loved these spinoffs. And this was right in that time, too, where CSI was getting all these spinoffs and stuff. Yeah, I forget. There are like 4 or 5 CSIs on at the same time. Law and Order's got spinoffs all over the place. Why shouldn't Las Vegas have gotten a spinoff? Why shouldn't it have been New Orleans? It's the next logical step. However, there would be Hurricane Katrina. And that, if there ever was a chance for it, if it ever got past anything other than this airing, if they were thinking about doing it, we're going to do it, we need to build a set, or we're going to try to figure out what we're going to do with it, that's gone. That 1,000% disappeared when Hurricane Katrina landed. But did Hurricane Katrina really have much to do with the show not picking up? Because Hurricane Katrina was in August of 2005. This episode airs in February of 2004. That's a year and a half. That's pretty long for them not to pick up a spinoff if they're going to pick up a spinoff. Something happened. Maybe they didn't like the spinoff. I don't know why they didn't like the spinoff. I think they should have gone with it. I liked it. I think they should have gone with it. Now, mind you, had they gone with it, yes, the next year, the entire tone of the show would have changed if they would have kept it. So there is that. There is that entire... Actually, if they had gone with it, so they got it in February 2004. If they had decided they were going to go with it, let's say for that next season, it would have debuted about the time of the hurricane. Yeah. And with the fast pace of how they shoot, unless it was a mid-season replacement, but with the fast pace of how they've been shooting the Las Vegas show, because that's August of 2005. It would have been that next season. And it would have fallen. That first season would have fallen square in the middle of Hurricane Katrina, and it would have halted or complete. It would have paused at the most, at the best, and completely killed the production of New Orleans after that. So maybe in the long run, it's better that it didn't happen, because at the best, maybe because shows like because Las Vegas was a lighter tone show. And shows like Las Vegas would do better in dealing with the consequences of Hurricane Katrina years later. Like Leverage Redemption is set in New Orleans, and they do a good job. One of the NCISs was in New Orleans, and they did a good job. But there's a distance from it that they can still be light and still talk about it and still acknowledge it and still not, it's not a hanging specter over the show that just drags. It's not something that's so devastating and entirely shifts the show to a just deep, dark, depressing drama. So unfortunately, it's probably fortunate that it wasn't picked up for that reason. I still love this episode. I want to know how you feel about this episode. I think it's a great one. One of the viewers said they don't think it's a great one, but maybe who's right, who's wrong? You tell me in any aspect that you want to in the comments. If you're listening to this on something that has a review section, you can review it there. Twitter, you can find me there. You can find me in all the places that you probably found the link to the podcast, and that's fantastic. Speaking of you finding links to the podcast, other people need to do the same thing. You need to share it. You need to share the podcast. You need to share the glory of this show that we collectively love called The Incomparable Las Vegas. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. Next week, we have another, I think, classic episode. It's a very good one. It is a very good one. It's You Can't Take It With You. This is the episode guest starring Sean Astin. That's a good one. That is a good one. That is a very good one. I do like this episode. I believe that you'll like this episode too. But what do I know? I thought you'd love New Orleans, but maybe you do, maybe you don't. Some people don't like it for specific reasons. Do you think that the show New Orleans, here's the question of the week. How do you think the show New Orleans would have looked, felt? What do you think would have happened to it with Hurricane Katrina, landing the way it did, when it did? How do you think that would have played? Tell me what you think the show New Orleans would have been. And would you have watched it? That's what I want to know. I also want to know that you'll be back next week, because you know I will be. Thank you for joining me again on this journey as we went through episode 16, New Orleans. One of my personal favorites. I don't care what none of y'all say. One of my personal favorites episode of season 1. And as always, in the meantime, in between time, till we see you again, please take care.